What's up, everybody? This is Katie again. I'm here at City Hall in downtown Hopkinsville. I'm not sure how this video is going to go today. It's kind of windy. It's kind of loud down here. Train just went by. Loud music, bass, horns honking. But I was in Hopkinsville. I had to run some errands this morning, and I was in Hopkinsville, and I thought, since I want to talk a little bit about, the kind of the politics side of things and making changes to laws, legalizing things or changing laws or changing regulations, like why not just stop here in front of City Hall, which is here, our lovely, ginormous, massive City Hall, and find me a little spot where I can sit. So I got me a nice little bench down the alley. There's some flowers to look at. If it does get really windy or really noisy or you can't hear me, just let me know. I can walk over to my car and hop in the front seat, and that won't be a problem at all. I've done it before. So anyway, today I really didn't think about writing anything down or taking notes, but I've really been kind of chewing over this topic in my head for some time now. And obviously right now there's a lot going on in the world. We went from being on quarantine for like 3 months and having businesses shut down, and the places that we go to worship or play or shop have been shut down for a while, and right around the time we started to get to where we wanted to open back up, then now we've got protesting going on, we've got police brutality going on, people are getting mad, there's no way for them to let off steam, and I think a big problem that we have right now is a lot of people's anger is misdirected, and that's just something that it's sort of a tool of the elite, so to speak, and whoever you think the elite is might be different for you, but a tool of the elite is dividing people based on opinions, and maybe even not even real important opinions, but dividing people on opinions and then turning people against each other. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of right now. We're seeing a lot of misdirected anger. So there are people that are angry at government for the abuses and the things that government is doing wrong, but they're taking their anger out on their neighbors. And so what I thought that I would talk about today, and kind of, I'll explain how I'm going to kind of work it into Hemp Homeschool and why it's really a hemp thing, but it's also for everything. But I wanted to talk about how to effectively make change, and whether that change is changing laws in your state or in your country, or changing regulations, or passing resolutions, or even holding a rally. There are really good, positive, effective ways to make changes and get things done. And then there's ways to kind of fall into that trap of dividing people and turning their anger on each other. So I think we're seeing a lot of that right now. So I thought that today would probably be a good day to talk about some of those things. So the first thing that you always want to do, and I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of changing hemp laws, changing drug laws, marijuana laws, and then, I'll get into a little bit on resolutions and regulations and that kind of thing. So the first step is always, always, always to identify your target. What is the target that you're trying to change? Because what we often hear is, the government needs to pass a law banning that, or the governor needs to change this drug law, or somebody needs to change this, somebody needs to do something about this. But what you have to understand is a lot of times people are directing their anger at one branch of government, but it's the wrong branch of government. So for example, right now, in Kentucky, we have people saying, well, the Governor Beshear's got to change this drug law. He's got to legalize marijuana, and it's a good sentiment. The sentiment is good, but the problem with it is what? Well, the governor doesn't change laws. The governor doesn't write laws at all. The governor executes the laws. So in your first step, which is find your target, you look at what are the branches of government and which branch of government is in charge of that particular thing. So we know from our old, school civics classes that there's 3 branches of government. And just to reiterate, we have the executive branch. The executive branch is your governors, your president. It's the judge executive in your county. And in Kentucky, we have county judge executives that are the executive for the county. In other states, it might be a different title, but it's essentially like the mayor of the county. We have mayors on the city level. So that's the executive branch of government. They execute the laws as those laws are written. So we also have the second branch is the legislative branch. And I know a lot of you guys know this already, but we have the legislative branch. The legislative branch of government writes the laws. So that's your on the federal level, that's your U.S. Congress and your U.S. Senate. On the state level, we have our state General Assembly, which is our state senators and our House reps, our House representatives. So that's on the state level. And then on the local level, you have groups like your city council, or in Kentucky, we have fiscal court on the county level. Again, you might have a different name for your fiscal court. We call them fiscal court, and on that level, those are either referred to as commissioners or magistrates, depending on the size of your county typically and how that government is set up. But those are the ones who actually are writing the laws. And then, so you'll have your city council that writes the laws, they pass the law, and then the mayor executes the laws. Same on the state level, the legislature writes the laws, and then the governor executes those laws. A couple motorcycles going by, so I'll wait for them to get up to the traffic light. And then the third branch of government is, that's your justice system. It's the judicial branch of government, and those are your judges. Those are the ones that are going to look at the actual execution of the laws, look at the laws themselves, look at how those laws are applied to people, and then judge whether the law was applied correctly or not. So for example, if the governor says, Katie, you are no longer allowed to wear this BMO shirt because it's offensive to anybody who's not an octopus. So, and I would argue that I can wear this BMO shirt because all octopuses are special, and even if you're not an octopus, I still have the right to wear this shirt. So the governor says I can't, I say I can. So let's say I go to jail because I'm wearing my octopus BMO shirt. And then I sue the governor and I say, that was illegal, you're not allowed to tell me that I can't wear this shirt, and then a judge will determine whether or not it's legal, not for me to wear the shirt, but for the governor to use his authority to punish me for wearing the shirt. So that judicial branch of government, well, it really has a lot to do with us, citizens, our taxpayers. It's also there to make sure that the government is not doing anything that it's not allowed to do. So it's judging us, it's also judging the government. And of course, there's a lot more to it. You know, it's kind of obviously very oversimplified version of how how the justice system works. But the point is, those three branches of government each have a very separate responsibility, and they have different obligations to us. So the first thing that you have to look at, I mean, we're still on step one here. The very first thing you have to look at is which branch of government is my target in this situation. If I'm looking at changing let's say I'm looking at, I want to put a stop to the drug war in Kentucky, and I want to legalize marijuana. I can't go to the governor's office and expect him to be able to legalize marijuana. I can't go to the Supreme Court and ask them to overturn marijuana laws. But what I can do is go to the legislature, and I can work with the legislature on writing a bill, drafting legislation or laws that will change those laws to make marijuana legal in Kentucky. So in other situations, you do have to look at the executive branch, and sometimes you do have to look at the judicial branch. Let's say, for example, so right now in Kentucky, hemp flower is illegal. It's illegal to possess hemp flower. Now, why is it illegal? Is it illegal because the legislature, the laws of our land say that it's illegal to have hemp flower? Well, no, not really. The laws of the land say that it's legal to have any cannabis material that's less than 0.3% THC. So if I have hemp and it's tested at below 0.3% THC, then technically that's illegal. And that's technically it's legal, not illegal. Technically, anything less than 0.3% THC is legal. Now, it's legal on the federal level. The federal farm bill says that any cannabis that's less than 0.3% THC is legal. It's considered hemp, and hemp is a legal, marketable substance in this country. However, on the state level, we've got some regulations, and those regulations say that yes, anything less than 0.3% is hemp, and yes, that's legal, but you're also not allowed to have it in the form of flower. You can't have those buds, you can't roll it into a joint, you can't make tea with it, you can't feed it to your animals after you've extracted it. So that's a regulation. So in this situation, we don't look at the legislature to fix this problem. We have to look at the executive branch. And in this situation, there's two kind of avenues that we could look at. We can look at, now both avenues are part of the executive branch. We can look at the governor's office to potentially file an executive order saying, this regulation, which is, regulations are handled by the executive branch. So this regulation is not okay, and I'm filing an executive order to stop my law enforcement from prosecuting for hemp flower. It's not actually changing any laws, but it's stopping how those laws are enforced. So if the law enforcement doesn't arrest you for having hemp flower, then there's no problem, right? The problem isn't that I'm in possession of hemp flower. The problem is that if a law enforcement officer finds me with the hemp flower, then they're going to take me to the jail. I don't have a problem with the flower. I have a problem with going to jail, right? So the other alternative that we can look at in this situation is the Ag Department. So the Ag Department in this particular situation is the department that promulgates the regulations. And what that means is they create those regulations. The legislature says, here's the basis, here's the laws that you have to work with, and then the Ag Department is responsible for writing the regulations based on those laws and going into more detail. For example, the law says that hemp is legal and you can grow it, and the ag department's going to promulgate the regulations, but it doesn't tell you how much you have to pay for a hemp license. It doesn't tell you how you can transport it from one place to another. It doesn't tell you a lot of little details, and that's where the regulations come in. So those regulations are going to tell you that you have to pay $500 to submit your application to grow hemp, or you have to pay $500 to be a fiber processor, or you have to pay, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000 to be a CBD processor. So all those little nitty-gritty details are going to be put together by the department that promulgates those regulations. So once you've identified the target, you've identified that I either need to go to the legislature for this, or I need to go to the executive branch for this, then you can move on to how you're actually going to execute your plan, how you're going to actually make those changes happen. And I kind of am getting the feeling that if I try to go into too much detail on that it's going to take me forever today. I remember back in the day I did a seminar for like 4 hours talking about how to actually draft legislation and write bills and change legislation and things like that. So I think 4 hours is probably too much to sit out here in the sun. But anyway, once you've identified your target, the next step is utilizing the tools that are available in that area. So, for example, if you're looking at actually changing the law, so we're talking in this situation about changing the cannabis laws in Kentucky. So we're looking to change the law, and we have to go to the legislature. Can't expect the governor to do that for us. So we go to the legislature, but what is the first step there? Well, you have to look at the laws the way that they're already written. So typically, when you're drafting a new piece of legislation, most of the times they're not just writing something from scratch. Now, in some cases they do, where they'll just completely write something from scratch. Usually takes a bill writer or a lawyer or something like that to actually write it from scratch. But it's really not hard to look at the legislation, look at the laws the way they currently exist, and then make changes to them from there. That's the way that I've done it. A lot of citizen activists or grassroots watchdogs or whatever you want to call them do the same thing. And you don't have to have a law degree, and you don't have to have a bill writer, and you don't have to be an elected official to get it done. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to you're going to kind of start searching. You're going to search through the laws as they exist currently, and you're going to find the laws that apply to what you want to change. So in this case, I would go on to the LRC website. The LRC website it's changed, so it's legislature.ky.gov. So I would go onto the LRC website, and I would pull up Kentucky law. And from there, you can scroll through pages and pages and pages of law. But luckily, they have a search engine that you can use, and that search engine will help you to find the laws that are specific to the topic that you're looking for. So you can look it up, just search for it, and let's say you look up the word marijuana, because that's how it's defined, and they don't call it cannabis, they call it marijuana. So marijuana is any cannabis that's above 0.3% THC. So I'm going to look up the word marijuana in my search engine, and it's going to pull up every single piece of the KRS, every statute, every law relating to marijuana. And so what I would normally do is I would pull those out, I would download those, and I would open them in some kind of Word file, or some kind of document program like Microsoft Word. I use Apple, so you could do that with, Pages maybe. But anyway, you pull up that legislation, and you are basically just going to go through it. You're going to highlight the things that you want to change, strike through the things that you want to delete, And then anything new, anything that you want to add to it, you're going to go in and typically what we'll do is we'll change our font to red. So anything new will be in red font. Anything that's getting deleted will be, you strike through, so you can just highlight it and click strike through, and that'll strike it through. That deletes it. And then I usually use yellow highlighter to highlight certain things that I want to make comments on or things like that. But using that strike through, actually how they do it in the legislature is a little bit different, so I'll talk about that too. But using that strike through is really handy because you're doing it in the way that the legislature is familiar. So what they do in the legislature is they strike through everything that's getting deleted, but they don't highlight anything. What they will do when they want to write new language, so let's say we're gonna strike through anything that says that marijuana is illegal in Kentucky, and then I'm gonna add new language, and that language is gonna say marijuana is legal. All right, obviously that's simplified, but let's just say I'm writing marijuana is legal. So I will take that phrase, marijuana is legal, or any new language that I'm adding to my bill, and I'll make it bold, I'll make it italic, and I'll make it underlined. So so anything that you're wanting to get rid of, you pull up your legislation, you read through everything, you see something you want to get rid of, you highlight it and hit strike through, strike it. And then if there's anything that you want to add, you write it, but you're going to make it bold, italic, and underlined. And what you're doing when you're doing that is you're writing in the same language that the legislature writes. So when a bill writer puts a bill together, if they are going to delete something from law, they will strike it through. If they are going to add something to law, they'll make it bold, italic, and underlined. So all I'm really doing, all I'm really explaining here is how to kind of write in the same language as the bill writers. So when your legislator looks at it, he knows how to read it, you know, and it gets to the point where you can take a piece of legislation, like we've got, you know, if we've got a new bill, and once you're used to reading legislation that way, and you know that strike through means I can totally ignore this and skip down to the next section because it doesn't apply here, it's being deleted, and anything that's bold, italic, and underlined is new. It saves a ton of time. And when you're actually trying to make change, it's a long process making change through legislation, and it helps if you have little tips and tricks and just that little bit of knowledge and know-how to get it done quicker. So at this point, when I read legislation, you know, if somebody sends me a bill and I'm like, and wants my opinion on it, I can pull it up, and even if it's a 400-page bill, if it doesn't change that much, if it's not all new language, I can skip through everything in that bill and just look for the stuff that's bold, italic, and underlined. Or I can just look through the stuff that's got strike-throughs, because I don't have to read 400 pages of legislation if they're only changing one paragraph. So it's a time saver, and it's one of those things, you're speaking their language, you're understanding how they communicate with each other, and that's how it is. I'm going to say that maybe in other states they're writing bills differently, and maybe they don't do bold, italic, and underline, but I know for sure that's how they do it in Kentucky, and it's important to understand that. So once you've identified your target, and in this case our target is the legislature, we want to change marijuana laws, and we've pulled up all of the language, the laws, and that have anything to do with marijuana, and then we've gone through and we've made those changes that we want to make, and we've crossed out the things that we don't like, and we've bold, italic, and underlined all the things that we want to add or change. Then the next step is to find yourself a sponsor. Now, a sponsor for legislation is the person who is going to file the bill. And typically you have a primary sponsor, and that's the one whose name is first on the bill. Now you can find those anytime you pull up a bill. You pull up a bill summary, or if you look on billwatch.com or something like that, usually the first name that's on there is your primary bill sponsor. And a lot of times legislators will get some co-sponsors together before they actually file the legislation. So so you've got your bill sponsor, maybe you've got some co-sponsors, and those co-sponsors are basically, they're saying, hey, I'm with you. I believe so strongly in this that I'm willing to put my name on it when you file this legislation. So you've got your bill sponsor, you've got your co-sponsors, and then the next step is really to continue to try to get more co-sponsors. So I kind of seems like I disconnected there for a second, but I was just saying that first step, get a co-sponsor, and then work on getting more, or get a sponsor, primary sponsor, and then work on getting more co-sponsors. But at the same time, co-sponsors aren't everything. We've had bills here that have had so many co-sponsors. You know, you get 40 co-sponsors on a bill, and it still doesn't get any traction. And how does that happen? Well, the next step is your lobbying practices and how you're going to lobby and who you're going to lobby. And typically your leadership in both parties is going to be the next step. Leadership in the Republican Party or leadership in the Democrat Party. I would love to throw libertarians in there, but unfortunately they don't have anyone in leadership positions yet, but someday. So you look at your leadership in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, and typically you want to look at which party is in control of which house. So if you've got the Senate, you've got the Republicans, they control the Senate, and the Democrats control the House, or vice versa, or maybe like the Republicans control both houses and the Democrats have the executive branch or the governor. That could happen. So typically what you're going to do is look at which party is in control, which party has the most control in the legislature right now. You identify that party, that's who you want your co-sponsor to be. If the Republicans are in power, you want your co-sponsor. I keep saying co-sponsor. But if the Republicans are in power, you want your primary sponsor to be a Republican, or that bill's not going anywhere. If the Democrats are in power, you want your primary sponsor to be a Democrat, or that bill's not going anywhere. It's not good. It's not a good thing. I hate that. I think if you have a good bill, it should be a good bill regardless of who the sponsor is or who's in power, and people should vote for it based on whether it's a good bill or not. But unfortunately, that's just not always the case. And a lot of times, the only thing that matters is which party is in control at the time. And if that party is in control, then how do you use that party and the power that party has at that time to manipulate the bill into getting it passed? So again, step 3. I don't know if we're on step 3 or 4 or any steps at this point, but you got your sponsor, you got your co-sponsors, you know which party is in power, so you've gotten co-sponsors in the correct party. You're playing the political football game the way that it's played, and then once you get all that stuff, then you can start lobbying and start basically tracking your votes. You want to talk to all the legislators. You want to talk to sheriffs. You want to talk to judge executives. You want to get them on board, get them calling your legislators. And I think I'm getting to probably close to 30 minutes now. So I'm not going to keep going on too much longer. I might actually follow this video up tomorrow with another video that's kind of similar. But maybe getting into more detail on some of these things, but because I didn't talk about resolutions. Resolutions are a great way to make change. They don't carry the weight of law, but resolutions are one of the best ways to change public perception on a topic, and to get the support of the public and then use that public support for your lobbying efforts. So, when I say, get out there and lobby and talk to your legislators and things like that, passing resolutions could be part of your lobbying techniques. Some of the things that we've done here on the hemp issue, we started out with a bill. We had a bill. We filed that bill for like 4 years in a row, and it got zero traction. But on the either fourth or fifth year, we changed how we approached it. So for the first several years, we had a Democrat, Joey Pendleton, who sponsored the legislation, and he sponsored it in the Senate. So the problem with that was, the Republicans controlled the Senate at the time. So it doesn't make sense to have a Democrat to come in with a bill in the Republican-controlled Senate and then expect to get any traction with it, especially if that Democrat is very partisan. Maybe they're kind of a team player. They like their team but not the other team, and Republicans are the same way. So, if they get a guy that's very partisan, then he's not going to have a lot of chance with the other party. So after having a Democrat as a sponsor for a few years, and we looked at the whole playing field. We said, okay, so the Republicans are in control of the Senate right now. We know we have the votes in the House on both parties, so we don't need to worry about the House so much. It's going to pass in the House. We need a senator in the Senate who's a Republican, because the Republicans control the Senate at this point. So we filed the legislation. We had a Republican senator at the time. It was Paul Hornback. Don't get me started. But it wasn't just lobbying our legislators that we did. So the next thing we did, we started talking to sheriffs all over Kentucky. We started talking to judge executives. We started talking to magistrates. I actually went to KCO, which is it's a Kentucky Association of Counties. I went to the KCO annual meeting, which is a big meeting. They get all the judge executives from 120 counties all together, all the magistrates, all the sheriffs, everybody that's a county official will come, and they all have their own little groups and their breakout sessions and this, that, and the other. And so I stood up there with James Comer, who at the time was the ag commissioner, and another friend of mine, John Riley, who is currently a judge executive. He wasn't at the time, but he is now. And we sat up there. We talked to the sheriffs about it. We talked to the magistrates about hemp. We talked to the judge executives about hemp. And we managed to get them all in one place, in one sitting, and basically spread that message across 120 counties. Now, not everybody gets that opportunity. So another method, if you don't have this kind of unicorn of an opportunity to talk to all the judge executives at one time, then you can start by passing a resolution in your own county. And so what I would do here in my county is I would go to my judge executive's office and I would bring him a resolution. And maybe we can post some resolutions. So I don't want to go into too far on how to write a resolution or anything like that, but I would take a resolution to my judge executive and I would say, here you go, Judge Tribble, I would really like your fiscal court to hear this resolution and to pass this resolution. And maybe this resolution says that Christian County Fiscal Court thinks that marijuana should be legal in Kentucky. We are asking the legislature to legalize marijuana in Kentucky, and that's it. It's not changing the law. It's not changing legislation in any way, shape, or form, but it's basically a statement from your county saying, here's what we think the legislature should do. Here's what we think you should do. So then once my county passes it, then I could go to the next county over and I can say, hey, Joe, your county hasn't passed this resolution yet. Will you come with me to meet with your judge executive and let's ask him to pass this resolution? And then the judge executive in that county can bring it up in their fiscal court and pass it there. And then once again, it's not changing any laws. It's just saying, okay, now Trigg County thinks that the legislature should change marijuana laws. And then I'll go to Caldwell County And then Caldwell County can pass a resolution saying that we think the legislature should change laws. And when you start seeing county after county after county, or mayor's office after mayor's office, or city council after city council coming out with these resolutions and saying we think the legislature should change this, that's when you start changing public perception on a topic. And I guarantee you, when these elected officials start to think that their vote, if they vote against this, now we've got all these people, they're all in support of changing marijuana laws. If they think that they're going to lose votes by voting against that resolution, they will change their vote. They will vote with you in order to not lose any votes. Politicians think of what they think of two things. There's two things that politicians are concerned with at all times. Basically, from the time they get elected, and I'll say there's probably some that don't really subscribe to this, but not many. Some of them just want to serve their 2 terms or whatever and go home, but not many of them. Most of them, as soon as they get into office, they're looking at their next election. They want to raise money, and they want to get votes. If they think that by voting against a marijuana law, it's going to lose votes, they will change their mind on something. And honestly, it has nothing to do with their principles, their beliefs on marijuana, or anything like that. It's about how many votes they're going to get if they continue, to kind of follow this old style way of thinking that, we need to have this drug war. So, money and votes, those are the 2 things politicians always listen to. They will listen to your donation, and they will listen to your vote. And when they start getting phone calls on a topic, that's when they start to actually process that there's an issue. For example, and then I'll wrap this up. But for example, when I call my legislator and I say, "Hey Myron, I really want you to vote in favor of BMO Octopus t-shirts. I really like my BMO Octopus t-shirt, and I don't want it to be illegal." Now Myron gets my message and he thinks, okay, well, I know that Katie represents at least 10 people. I know that Katie can get 10 people to the polls to vote against me if I don't support BMO Octopus t-shirts. If I vote against this BMO Octopus t-shirt bill, then Katie is guaranteed going to go get 10 people to vote against me. So if I call him, and then my best friend calls him, and then the guy down the street calls him, that's 30 votes represented right there. Every single phone call or email or text message or Facebook message that these legislators are getting, every single one of those represents 10 votes. That's how they see it. It doesn't really represent 10 votes, but they see it as 10 votes. So if you get one person to call a legislator and say, "Hey, I really want you to vote for these t-shirts, I love them," that's 10 votes right there. It might be enough to maybe make them think about the t-shirt or how they're going to vote. But if you get 5 people to call them, that's 50 votes right there. That could throw an election. So you get 5 people to call their legislators, and those legislators are like, that legislator's like, "Oh man, that's 50 votes right there. That's enough to swing an election in a small town. I better actually pull up that legislation and take a look at it." That's 5 votes. 5 votes, and I guarantee you they will pull that bill up and they will read it. Because when you have 600-700 bills in a session, they're not reading every single bill. It's impossible. I guarantee you they're not reading every bill. But if they get 5 phone calls about a bill, they'll pull it up and they'll read it. They get 10 phone calls about a bill, they'll start to take that bill pretty seriously. Now we're talking about 100 votes. If they get 50 phone calls, that's 500 votes. That is an election right there. There's elections that have been won with less than 500 votes. So if you get 50 people to call a legislator on an issue, it's pretty reasonable to think that he's going to change his mind and he's going to vote with those 50 people, almost regardless of how he feels about it. Because votes and money, 2 most important things in any election. Not in any election, it's what's most important in the perspective of a politician. They're worried about their votes, they're worried about getting money to run another election. So I hope that I didn't ramble on too terribly long today. I definitely, it's almost 1 here, so I've definitely been talking for a while. But like I said, this is one of those things that it's kind of easy to ramble on. There's a lot of little nitty-gritty details. There's a lot of techniques and different angles to take when you're talking about how to actually make change. So that's why I was hoping people would ask questions. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, let me know. Drop them in the comments or send us a message or something, because it is a little bit hard to stay on topic or stay in a straight line with this kind of thing. And I don't know what you don't know. So if there's something you want to know, and the reason, another reason that I wanted to bring this up today is because we've had a lot of people say, hey, can you come here to where I live and help us legalize it in my community? And it's like, well, probably not. I don't think I'm going to get to, where was it, Myanmar or something like that? I mean, we have people from other countries asking if, we would come to their country and help them legalize stuff. And it's like, man, I would love to, but maybe I'll just make a Facebook Live video instead and at least get you pointed in the right direction. So, with everything going on in the world today, I think I'll end this just by saying, keep an eye on each other, look out for your neighbors, check on your neighbors, especially if there's old people or elderly people in your community. If you live in a city, be careful. We live out in the country. They'd have to find us first if they wanted to cause any trouble out there. But look out for each other. We're all here on this planet together. God put us here to build this planet into a paradise. So this is the kingdom of God on earth right here. So don't waste it. If you're mad about something, if you're upset about a law, or you think that things need to be changed, just look at who you're upset at and focus your energy, focus your anger, focus that righteous anger in the right direction. Not at your neighbors, not at the small business owners that live near you. I always say to my kids, like, we don't hate people. We don't leave room in our hearts for hate, but always leave room for righteous anger. Because I think there's a time and a place for righteous anger. And I've had several of my friends who are yogis or Christians or Buddhists who've said the same thing. And I think that's one of those things that it's the same regardless of who you are, what color your skin is, or what religion you are. Don't hate people, but leave room in your heart for righteous anger, because it's important. It's important, and that's part of justice and what justice is. Thanks for your comments, everybody. I will let you go before I start getting all teary and mushy and stuff. So have a great day. We'll holler at you tomorrow. Oh, and we have a really, really exciting hemp homeschool coming up. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do this week. I might have an awesome video Thursday, or I might spend a little time editing the video and make it even better, and then drop the video on Tuesday of next week. So we'll see how it goes, but stay tuned. I'm very excited. We'll be talking about more politics, legislation, how to make change in your communities. Bye.